Hello and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast for another team's season preview. And this time the team we're doing is the Jacksonville Jaguars. I am, as ever, your host, Annie Davis. With me, I've got a returning guest, our resident Jags fan. With us today is BritJag, otherwise known as Lee White. Lee, how are you?
I'm really good, thank you, Andy. Getting excited for the season now, getting closer. It's obviously a long old off season, and we're nearly there.
Almost there. And the time of recording is middle of August, so it's ever so close to the season starting. Cannot wait. It's seemingly both the quickest and the shortest off season in history. It always is. Always seems to fly by, but also seems an age away as well at the same time. So I'm glad that I always think of things like when I was a kid, I always used to think, when I'm a celebrity with Don, I used to always think, it's now close to Christmas. Whereas now I'm seeing preseason games, and now I'm thinking, right, it's here. The NFL season is here, and I can't wait to begin. So I'm looking forward to that a lot. And of course, I met you just a month or two ago in Bristol at the Jags UK event. How did you find that?
Yeah, I thought it was really good. It was really nice to have something like that in kind of my neck of the woods, because I'm from Devon originally, but living in Bristol currently, and to not have to travel for something like that was quite nice, and I think they did quite a good job. And it was an entertaining evening. It was just a nice little NFL/Jags fix to, I suppose, just see me through the off season.
Yeah, it was nice. I think we had those events years ago, NFL UK Live. Haven't seen it really return apart from the Jags editions of it, but whenever I've been to any of these events, both Jags UK events and NFL UK Live, it's always great. And I wish the Premier League had more events like this. I mean, it's it made me wonder why they wouldn't do it more often. I mean, they have obviously fan events. There seems to be more for like season ticket holders and members rather than anyone can just rock up and from a different team. But I see the pros and cons in that. But no, it's nice to have that interaction being just that close to NFL players, because especially if you're from a sport that is played thousands of miles away from us as Brits, watching them on a TV week in, week out, especially if it's your team, to then see them up and close in person must be just fantastic. So yeah, I always enjoy the events, and I'm just hoping one day, we'll see some Dolphins players come down to these events. But it seems to be a lot more Jag space now. But it is what it is. So let's head on to the Jags ins and outs of the season. Quickly, the outs. There weren't, from memory, that many major outs. Obviously, Calvin Ridley was one of the main outs. Darius Williams, Jamal Agnew, less important, Matt Barkley. Otherwise, Clavon Chaison's gone out. He's gone to the Panthers. Foley Fatukasi has also left, as well as Brandon McManus. Maybe different reasons than we all thought before. And then players, in terms of ins. First of all, you re-signed the likes of Josh Allen. He was one of your free agent re-signings, as well as the likes of Ezra Cleveland and Dearness Johnson. You traded for Mac Jones via the Patriots. And then your main ins include the likes of Gabe Davis, Arik Armstead, Joshua DeGuara, as well as other players, including the likes of Devin Duvernay, Terrell Edmonds, Trey Flowers, Travis Gibson, Mitch Morse, Darnell Savage, and Joey Sly. Lee, overall for you, your take on the team's off-season?
So I feel like it was a bit of a quiet. That list kind of makes it seem different, but it felt like quite a quiet off-season for the Jags, really. There didn't feel like there was a lot of goings-on, especially of real note, I suppose. With the Calvin Ridley thing, I'm not as bothered as some Jags fans. I personally feel like he didn't quite live up to the hype that he kind of came in with. I couldn't find any statistics, but it felt like he was responsible for a lot of the dropped passes. We had quite a high rate of passes dropped in the NFL, one of the top in the league, and the majority felt like they were in his direction. I feel like there might have been a bit of rust there, obviously with his time away from the league, and yeah, especially with the money he's being now paid at the Titans, I'm quite happy we didn't re-sign him, really. I don't think he was that level of value to us. And I don't know, this year he's had a whole year back in the league. He may be a different player. Obviously, we'll get to see him up close and personal twice. But Yeah, I'm quite happy with Gabe Davis coming in. I think he's another solid wide receiver who's got experience in the league. And obviously, I'm assuming we'll move on to the draft in a little bit, but obviously we've also addressed that issue there as well, I think.
Yeah, I completely forgot to mention the draft, but I do love the Aaron Compton edition. I think that's a fantastic edition. I think that probably is, to me, the standout edition you made. I do, on the Sly, I like, no pun intended, I like the Joey Sly edition. That was, I think, it's a good kicker. Overall, I think he could be good there. And of course, Gabe Davis, I think, is such a hit and miss kind of player. I think we saw the Bills. There would be some weeks where he'd be outstanding. You think particularly of the Bills divisional round game, the 13 seconds game where he had 4 touchdowns, 200 yards. And I remember just he was the worst player to have on fantasy football. He really was, because there'd be some weeks where he'd get you 30 points and some weeks where he'd get you 5. But I think he could be a good addition. I think as a number 2, number 3, I think it's not a bad option. And then I think Mac Jones coming in, I think obviously had his problems, but I do feel like the organisation failed him more than maybe he failed the NFL. So I think maybe obviously Lawrence comes in as number 1. That's obviously no question about it. I think having him as a backup, we see in the NFL a lot of time that once you lose your quarterback, that's your season done. But if you got a good backup, it can make up for it a little way. I think the Bengals got 8 or 9 wins with their backup, and Gardner Minshew almost got close to the playoffs as a backup. I think as long as you got a good backup, it can help you still get some wins. I think Mac Jones has proved to be still competent enough, whilst not elite player, just a very average quarterback. But I think he could be a good serviceable backup, and also he's from the area, so that makes it a little bit of a nicer story as well. In terms of the draft as well, I know I mentioned it altogether. I forgot to mention it, but the main picks you took were Brian Thomas Jr., receiver, 23rd overall out of LSU, Mason Smith, tackle, LSU again. Jerryon Jones, FSU, cornerback, taken in the 3rd round. Javon Foster and Jordan Jefferson taken in the 4th round, offensive and defensive tackles, respectively. 5th round, he took DeAndre Price, cornerback, and Keelan Robinson, running back, as well as in the 6th round, Cam Little, the kicker, and Miles Cole, defensive end, the 7th round from Texas Tech. Yeah, in terms of the draft as well, Lee, it's obviously the main one is Brian Thomas, because he will go into what is now a very good, probably not elite, but a very good receiver room. Obviously, you've got probably 4 there, good, serviceable, above average or wide receivers. That's only going to help, right?
Yeah, definitely. And it sounded like from camp, his early days, it did sound like he was struggling a little bit to kind of find his footing. People were raising concerns, but since then, it feels like now every day that kind of goes past, I look on Twitter and there are a lot more positives kind of flowing through, and I think his confidence is growing, and I think his big plus is his speed, and I think that's something we've been sorely missing. So I think he's going to make a huge difference to our offense. And like you say, he's got some experienced heads in there with Christian Kirk and Gabe Davis that will only help him, and that should help him settle in. And I'm looking forward to seeing him in a competitive NFL game.
Yeah, I think it's a massive history, and a good one as well, of LSU wide receivers doing well at the NFL level. You think of Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase more recently, Odell Beckham back in the day, and there seems to be some sort of tradition at LSU to have really good wide receivers. I think if anything goes by the last 10 years or so in LSU, then you've got yourself a real start. And if it is a start, then to get him at 23 is a bit of a steal. So that's exciting. Now, moving on to one of your other off-season news, which wasn't a player in or out. It was a new deal for Trevor Lawrence, who got a massive extension. Now, I'm just going to quickly get up the exact figure. It was a 5-year deal, $275 million. But I've got to be honest, in his time in the NFL, it's been very hit and miss. Off the first year, it's a bit of an outlier, a bit of an asterisk behind that first year, because we know how bad it was around Mayo and all the off-the-field stuff, as well as on the field. And secondly, obviously, we saw a massive improvement. He was really, really good. And, he got you to a playoff and got you a playoff win. Had one of the most topsy-turvy games ever in playoff history. The contrast between that first and second half, which is absolutely crazy. But then this year was a bit hit and miss. Not all down to him, but you were 8-3 and then ended up missing out on the playoffs completely. Would you have paid Trevor Lawrence that much money?
It is one of those kind of things that has divided the fan base a lot, really. It was a situation where we wanted to make sure he was paid, but obviously, the thing is with especially NFL quarterbacks, everyone just resets the market, and it looks like a lot of money now, but already like other deals are being kind of talked about, and time's moving on, and it won't be that long till that kind of number isn't looking as much of an outlier as it is currently. I personally think, as you said, last season we were at 1.8-3, and that we would had a chance to go in and become number 1 seed in the AFC. And that was the beginning of his injury streak. He got in like successive games. He had I think it was an ankle, a knee, a shoulder, concussion, and they kind of just kept piling up, and it really kind of just cemented the downfall of the team. And obviously there were other things, and a lot of those injuries were down to our O-line. And I don't think it's a coincidence that we were 8-3 and the season then fell apart when he started to get hurt. He only missed one game throughout that. He kind of did try and force his way through and kind of battle on. Whether or not that was the right decision, maybe he would have benefited from sitting a week or two here or there. It could have been a different story, but hindsight's a great thing. And I think in the NFL, you kind of got to respect the player that's going to try and step up and play through an injury. I don't think it's as bad a deal as it kind of looks from the outside. I think he's been quite team friendly as well with it, because he's staying on his rookie deal for the duration of his rookie deal, and then his new contract starts. So I think he's now contracted with us till 2030. So we've still got another year. We're not losing the kind of rookie deal benefit in his last year or 2 years. I think he's including his 5th-year option. So that's good from a roster building perspective. And like I say, I think the goods definitely outweigh the bads in his career so far. And I think it's just, I think with a strong O-line, I think we will see, which is something we have also addressed, I think we should see another step forward.
Yeah, and I think you're right about the injury. I think that's something that probably a lot of non-Jags fans probably have drawn the conclusion. You had a bad end of the season. The quarterback gets the most talked about, whether it's bad or good, and therefore he was at fault. And I do think there was, I always think back about that last game of the season. Can't think of the game. I think it was against the Titans, where it was 4th down, 2 minutes of water left, and he seemed to just throw the ball in out of bounds, and that was a worrying play. But I do think at the same time, he has shown he can be a good player. I think there's a reason why he was number 1 overall pick. So yeah, it's me. I think this season will be a big test now for him, and I have my doubts, but also I've seen enough clips in that sophomore year to show he can be good. But yeah, for me the jury's out, but I'm also prepared to be proved wrong maybe this year. Well, I think we'll see a healthy Lawrence now with a great choice receiver. I think we'll see potentially the real Lawrence. I think that'll be the real determination of whether he is just a one-season wonder, or whether he is actually an NFL good / very good in the elite sort of region. Yeah, I think next year will be the real test if he can stay healthy. Now, it's been a weird sort of year for the Jaguars, or 2 years really, because you had 2022 where it was the Titans had the division locked up seemingly, and then they sort of capitulated, and you came in, sneaked in, won the division, made the playoffs, beat the Chargers as a result. But in the following season, you were the ones who lead the division, and then the Texans sweeped in and got the division, and they obviously a team that has massively improved. Stroud is seemingly already a top 5, top 10 quarterback in the league. He had a great sort of season. He had showed a lot of poise and character, which I don't think a lot of rookie quarterbacks show. Anthony Richardson has come in, obviously a quarterback that had injury problems last year for the Colts, but he's shown in albeit a brief amount of time that he can be a good quality NFL quarterback. I think he just reminds me a lot of Cam Newton. Hopefully not the same sort of injury record as he had, but divisional round is improving. You think that the Colts have got elite weapons now. Well, Michael Pittman especially. The Titans have lost Derrick Henry, yes, but they'll probably be the weaker team. But you think about the Colts and the Texans, especially. The Texans gone out and got Diggs, and I think you've forgotten the guy from the Vikings, the defensive player, the one who. But they've got players in, and Texans, the Colts team is two. Well, Texans team is one of the favourites, but the Colts team is a dark horse to challenge for a sort of Super Bowl berth. With the whole division around you improving, is that a worry about trying to get back to being first in that AFC South, but just be a much harder proposition than maybe it was a couple of years ago to win that division?
Yeah, I think the AFC South is now, it's kind of swung 180 really, because you've gone from having a division which was seen as just a bunch of kind of whipping boys to a degree, like there wasn't much talent in the division, and now if you look at QBs alone, obviously, like you say, the opinion's out on Lawrence a little bit, but I still think even on his bad days, he's still a top half QB. I personally think top 10 still. Obviously, Anthony Richardson's got a lot of potential. As I said, CJ Stroud showed a lot of potential in his first year, and obviously, provided he can keep kind of going with that, there's no reason why that they shouldn't have another really, really good year. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough division, but I do think that on paper, we can match up with those teams. I do think with Stroud, I think people are getting a touch carried away. Don't worry, it's not just because they're a rival. I think he's a great player, but obviously we have seen players have great years, especially their rookie years, and obviously the sophomore slump and things like that. I think maybe like where people like kind of ranking him top 5 QB in the league, maybe a little bit prematurely. And obviously we'll see. I mean, he may come out and carry on and fully deserve that spot, but I think it will be now a test to see if he can maintain that. In regards to the Titans, obviously they've got a few good receivers. I think probably Will Levis is probably the least talented of the 4 QBs. I think that's pretty fair to say. But obviously they've got Calvin Ridley there now, which, as I said earlier, he may well, now he's had a year to kind of shake off the rust, may be back to a bit more like what he was. And I believe they've still got DeAndre Hopkins, that was obviously, even though he is getting towards the end of his career, he's still a very talented wide receiver, which a lot of teams would gladly take. So it's a tough division, but I still believe that we are capable of winning it, but I think it will be a lot closer than it's been in previous years. I think there could be 2 or 3 winners quite easily.
Yeah, it's certainly a case for. Yeah, so I think the Titans probably not, but I think even then you got a head coach now who was the OC at the Bengals, and you saw what he did with Joe Burrow in that offense, and also I think they're probably they are the weak link out before. But they were saying about the Texans 12 months ago, look what happened there, so you never know. And then, with everything I mentioned about the Texans before, and I think all 3 teams have genuine cases. And I think that whilst I would probably put the Texans or the Jags third out the 4, you just never know. And again, we see every year, teams will, they will completely go under or over expectation. The amount of teams we see that, every year you get this one team that finishes 4th one year, and then next year they go first place. And you see other teams that make the playoffs and don't make it the following year. And I think there's actually a lot of teams. There's normally like something like only on average, like 7-8 teams out the 16, out the 14 that are in the playoffs each year were in there the year before. So I think it's that's why I love the sport. It's the parity's there. Anyone can win any week, any given Sunday, to excuse the pun. And literally, you just don't really know. Obviously, some teams you expect to be there, but even that one injury to like Mahomes or to a once again Joe Burrow or to any of Lamar Jackson, I think the team season done, and it can happen. An injury can happen to anyone. So, yeah, I think there's always reasonably hopeful, and I think there's definitely always cases to have that optimism before week 1 starts. Obviously, normally some teams, week 2 happens, you lost 2 games, you're like, right, that's the season done. But yeah, That's why we love it, and I think anything can happen. Now, we are going to head to our final section. It's going to be our win-loss-tie section. So for those of you who haven't heard the podcast before, every fan who comes on predicts their team's record by going through each game and answering with a win-loss-tie answer. So Lee, first of all, you came on last year. So the Jags in 2023 finished 9-8. Do you by chance remember what your prediction was a year ago?
I think I was along the lines of 11 or 12 wins. I can't remember exactly what I'd say. Probably 11 or 12 wins, I think.
So in 2023, it's my system's being awfully slow today, so I'm just trying to find the predictions. So in 2023, when you came on a year ago, your prediction was you were the 7th most optimistic fan, and you went 12-5. So yeah, 3 wins in it.
Yeah, and like I said, I still think had Trevor been healthy, I think we definitely would have at least managed 1 or 2 more there. So I'm not too disappointed with that.
Okay, so week 1, you're on the road to my team, the Miami Dolphins. Win, loss, or tie.
See, the speed of the Dolphins concerns me, and as much as I'd love to say win, because obviously you've got a Jags old boy with Jalen Ramsey there, I'd love to get a win over him, but I think that's going to be a tough one. So I'm going to put that one down as a loss for the Jags.
Okay, so then week 2, you're at home to the Cleveland Browns.
I'm not really sure what to expect from the Browns this year, really. I think they're kind of going to be a middle of the pack to top our team, but I think we'll get a win there.
Okay, so that means then you go to week 3 on the road to the Buffalo Bills.
We seem to do well against the Bills. We seem to have a pretty good record, especially in recent history. I don't know. But saying that, we're probably due a loss to them. So let's go with a loss there.
So then week 4, you are on the road to the Houston Texans.
I'm going to go for a win here. I feel like we will be really up for it. With last year, I think we took them too lightly. We went 1-1 with them last year, and we took them too lightly in the first game against them. And I think we'll be really up for it.
So then week 5 is a home game against another division rival in the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, I'll go for another win there. I think we're capable of beating the Colts, especially at home.
So then week 6, it's a road game. Oh, it's not a road game. Actually, no, it is in London. Who should you take on the Chicago Bears?
The Bears, obviously, they're going to be a completely different team, I feel like, from what we've seen the past couple of years, especially on offense. But London is something that I feel like the Jags have got down quite well now. Like the whole kind of traveling, how long to leave it, what to do when you arrive, getting themselves in a good position to play. I think we win in London there.
Okay, I mean, yeah, it's you are sort of London's team. I don't know, obviously, in the UK in general, there's you can see every jersey on display at games, but I do feel like in terms of a team, you've got London down to a T. Exactly what you're saying. You know, you played there 11, 12 years now in a row if you take away COVID, and you know it's probably, and even with the fact you got 2 games a year now in London, I think that will only help, especially your second game out of the 2. If you keep doing each year, I think that second game especially will be your real one, almost a lock to win it, because you know it's not like some teams come in Friday, Saturday morning, they've got 1 day to train, that's it, they play a game, jet lag's still there, they often lose. Bills last year was one of them. I think the Titans did the same thing as well the week after that. Whereas, you know, having that few days extra in the 1 week, let alone an extra week on top of that, getting adjusted to the time zone and all that kind of stuff, I think goes a long way to helping you win games. And I think, you know, we'll go into it in a bit, but the game against Patriots, how bad they're going to be, I think that's one of the biggest locks of the whole season for any game in NFL history this season. I really do think that the team that I think might be the worst team in the whole conference against a team that has had an extra week to play in London, is used to playing there, played there every year, I said before, for the last 12 years, excluding COVID. I think I think it went a long way to you winning the Bills game last year. I think it really went a long way. Having that extra week to prepare. I think if you played that game in America after playing in London a week before against the Falcons, I think you might have lost that game. I do. But I think the fact you had that extra week goes a long way. And we mentioned London. Actually, I've met you in London. I've seen you in the press box. And are you going to London again this year?
I will be for the Patriots game, I believe. Probably not the Bears one, but I'll be there for the Patriots one.
It must be so nice because I've seen us play once in London, and we've only played in London, I believe 5-6 times in the last since 2007 when you were the first one. It must be just so nice having your team every year. You get to see them. Well, now it's twice a year, but at least once a year you get to see your team play on your backyard. Theoretically, it must be an amazing sort of feeling.
It is nice. It is nice now we are a good-ish team. It wasn't as much fun when we were kind of coming over every year and just losing. So we get one chance to see it, and then it was kind of just okay. We look forward to it kind of all year. This one game, and then I don't know if you remember the Texans game. It was woeful. We scored one field goal.
I was there for that one. Yeah,
we had all year round, and that kind of appeared. And then it's like, oh, we got to wait another year now. So but it's good to have them. Like the 2 games thing, I don't know how long that will last. Obviously, up until now, the this year and last year scheduling has kind of lined up well with it. I don't know if there's plans to kind of keep it permanent as 2 games, but in the near future, we will have to have a season away from Jacksonville, which most of our games will be played on. I think it's looking like it's leaning towards Orlando, but there is the potential of having a few extra games in London to kind of to allow for while the building work's taking place, basically. So I don't know whether or not that will happen, but I think there is talk about it, that potentially 3 or 4 games over in London for the Jags. But obviously that all allows with obviously Wembley's scheduling and things like that as well. So we'll see. I mean, it would be lovely. I don't think my bank balance would think that. So, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I reckon that if it is 3 games rather than 4, I think make a case where every single game is a Jags home game. I have all 3 games in London are all the Jags. I think that could be where it goes. Quite nice it can be Orlando because that is quite a big UK tourist destination. I know a lot of people go there, Disney World and all that. So I think as an NFL fan, if you can really mix in then a family holiday, take the kids there, but also sneak in an NFL game whilst you're there, persuade the family, wife and kids to do that. I think that could be on I think a lot of NFL fans' radar in the UK to take your kids to Orlando. Probably cheaper because it will be, maybe even in the half term, cheaper than it would be, in the summer. I think that would be. I think a lot of NFL UK fans will be on that like a dog on heat. So that's going to be interesting. If we do that, I'm intrigued how many UK fans go over for a Jags game. Week 7 is remaining in London. This is October 20th. 9:30 a.m. for those listening in America, but of course a lot more reasonable for us UK fans against the Patriots. Win, loss or tie.
Yeah, I think that one's a win. As you said, I think the week before is a bonus. But if I'm honest, I think even if that one was in the US, I think I'd still be fairly confident in a win on that one.
Interesting, actually. I'm looking at your schedule. So from week 6 to the end of week 10. All those games are against a team that is playing an international game. Obviously, we've had the Bears and Patriots in London. Then after that, you've got games against the Packers, Eagles, and Vikings who all play abroad. Whether that's Packers and the Eagles are playing in Brazil, and then the Vikings are playing the other London game against the Jets. So yeah, a lot of international series teams are playing in a row there, which is quite an interesting fact there. One I didn't really think about. I mentioned then week 8, you're at home back in America against the Green Bay Packers.
I'm not really sure what to kind of expect because I think they've got potential. I think the Packers are going to be a team that's. I think they'll make the playoffs, but I don't know. I think at this point, the confidence might be kind of starting to build around the Jags, and we might be on a bit of a roll. and we do seem to have a bit of a habit of kind of when we do have winning streaks, they kind of go on for a little bit. So yeah, let's go for another win against the Packers.
Okay, I love that. Means you are 6-2 going into your next game, which will be on the road against the Philadelphia Eagles.
So I think this is a loss. This one, obviously, Eagles are a very good team. So yeah, I'm not going to expect much from that one because obviously Philadelphia is a tough place to go at the best of times.
So in week 10, you are playing at home the Vikings, who will be, as we talked about in the previous episode, without their quarterback, JJ McCarthy, who will be injured for the whole year. So you're playing Sam Darnold, most likely at that point, at home, win, loss or tie.
Yeah, so now we're kind of with that information, I think it's a lot more winnable. I think it would have been a tougher game. But yeah, no, let's go with a win for that one.
Okay, so in week 11, on the road against the Detroit Lions.
Oh, let's see. The Detroit, it feels like a lot with the Detroit Lions. I really like the Lions. I don't know, for some reason I feel like they're like the NFC equivalent of us. It's gonna be a tight one, but I think the Lions might take that one.
Yeah, I think they're a really interesting team because I think as good as they were last year, it is just 1 year. So I'm intrigued whether they're going to keep it going, what we talked about in the Lions episode, whether the loss against Niners may spur them on. But at the same time, it could also be a case where, maybe they overachieved and maybe they could be, now they're being seen with that massive sort of expectation and hype, whether they'll be able to live up to that. Whereas last season was a bit of like, everyone thought they'd be doing well, but no one thought they'd get that far. So it's a bit of a change in mentality. Yeah, really intrigued how they're going to do this season. Week 12 is bye week. So week 13, the first game in December is at home to the Houston Texans.
Yeah, so I think the Texans, we'll probably split with them again. Obviously, so I said win earlier, so I'll put this one down as a loss, but I think it could go either way. I think it'll go 1-1 over the series.
Yeah, I think at that point we realise whether Stefon Diggs is going to be another locker room cancer or whether he's going to be okay. We'll have to find out because he's certainly a player that splits opinion. Let's put it that way. So yeah, intrigued how that works out. His sort of thing with Stroud because he's had, both with Kirk and Josh Allen seemingly fallout. So yeah, it's intrigued if he doesn't get the ball straight away because they've already got Tank Dell and Nico Collins there, Dalton Schultz. If he's not going to get all the main sort of reps, I'm intrigued how he's going to handle that because he seemingly can't handle not getting the target. Like towards the end of the time, Buffalo Bills, he was becoming a real distraction. So yeah, intrigued how that works out, that dynamic between him and Stroud. Week 14, head to Nashville and take on the Tennessee Titans. Win, loss or tie?
I think we'll beat the Titans. I think we beat the Titans.
Okay, yeah, it's I think if they had Derrick Henry, maybe you would have thought that they could cause us problems, especially in the run game. But I think without him there, I think you guys will be absolutely fine. So week 15, you're at home to another team who's playing international football this season against the New York Jets.
So obviously the Jets are still a bit of an unknown. We've still seen very little of them under Aaron Rodgers after last year. So I don't know. Let's go for it. Let's just be optimistic. Let's go for a win because I'm very torn on that one. I'm really not sure kind of what to expect from the Jets. I'm really not sure.
Yeah, it's such a hard one because they're obviously, I've said before in a Jets episode, it all hangs in the balance of whether Rodgers is healthy and, if he's back healthy, is he going to be the same quarterback because he is of a certain age and, no matter who you are, Father Time eventually catches up with you, whether it's 32, 42, 39, whatever age, at some point, age gets the better of you and you can't do the same things you used to do. And the O-line has improved, but it's such a hard one. I think they're either going to go 12-5, make the playoffs, win a playoff game or two, or they could finish with 6 wins and ultimately Rodgers hangs their boots there and then calls it a day and that's a Jets experiment. well and truly over. So they're one I really hope don't do well for obvious reasons, but they could be good as well. They could be really good. So it's I think at that point when week 15 comes against yourselves, I think we'll know who the Jets really are. I think that's the big thing, and I think they probably are the most intriguing team, one of the most intriguing teams going into these. I really do think they're one that definitely a lot less hype than it was last year. I think last year had a lot of hype, not as much this year, but I don't know what to make of them. It could be one way or the other. Week 16, though, you're going to Vegas to take on the Raiders.
I think historically we don't travel well over to the West Coast, so I'll probably go for a loss on that one.
Okay. I mean, that D line is going to be scary with Christian Wilkins, Max Crosby, especially. That's going to be a really exciting, scary for opposition offenses. I think that's going to be a good unit there for them. Week 17, your final home game of the regular season as you take on the Tennessee Titans.
I think, I'm going to go win just because I feel like we owe them for the end of last season. I really want to do the double over them. So,
yeah, I'm sure that's heated up the rivalry there and makes you really want to get that win even more so. Week 18, though, could be a hell of a game on the road to the Indianapolis Colts. Win, loss, or tie?
I don't know the exact stats of it, but I think we've got a ridiculously good record on the road against the Colts. I can't remember it is off the top of my head, but we've got like a really long win streak against them there. So I think it'll all come down to if we've got something to play for. I think that's a win. Whereas if the season's petered out and we're not in contention for the division title or the playoffs, who knows? But I think if there's something to play for, I think we can win that one.
Yeah, I just think that week 18 is such an outlier compared to the rest of the season because you can predict a win now, but then it comes week 18, the Colts could be the first seed, they could rest their players, or you could be the first seed or second seed, resting players for the next round of the playoffs. So I think it's by far the hardest game to predict. So I think in terms of predicting it so far in advance, that's probably the hardest one to predict. You don't know what the situation is by then, exactly what you're saying. But I think one of the easiest to bet on if you know a team's going to play their backup. So that's always an interesting week. But you will finish with that prediction with a 11-6 record, which would get you into playoffs. You would think most years it does. If you were to make the playoffs with that record, how far are you advancing in the postseason?
Obviously, it all comes down to kind of how the berths kind of line up and who you're against. But I feel like when it comes to the knockout games, I feel like we, especially in the season, obviously previous to last, I feel like we seem to play better. I'm not really sure why, but when it was really on the line, we seemed to be able to step up. And because even the Chiefs game that we lost, we kind of took it fairly to the wire, really. Like we did give them a good game. So I think we could definitely get out of the wildcard round and probably at least one win. That's what I'll say. At least one win in the playoffs.
Okay, fantastic. And I think that is, I think as Brits, I think we have to. I think if you're a Colts, Titans or Texans fan, maybe not. But I think as a UK fan, I think you have to sort of almost have a soft spot for the Jags just because of the London connection. I've been very, like yourself, very fortunate because of the Jags to get a chance to do press work at Wembley. I mean, that's something I dreamt of as a child. And, have a team that plays in London every year, you have to sort of cheer them on. I mean, I certainly would root for them over most teams in the AFC. And I think, because of that London link, I think it'd be remiss not to do that. And of course, it is actually, I didn't mention it, your 30th anniversary as a team. And you brought out some really nice throwback jerseys. I bet you're looking forward to seeing that one on display.
Yeah, no, it does. It looks really nice. I haven't actually made the purchase myself yet because They're a little bit pricey, but I'm sure when I get to the shop at Wembley and I see them hanging there, I don't know if I'll be able to say no.
Which player would you target? Would it be Trevor Lawrence, or who would you sort of aim for the player on your jersey if you did get one at Wembley?
Yeah, I think now with the big contract, I think Lawrence is probably the safe option. Either him or probably Josh Hines-Allen, because obviously he got his new deal as well. So yeah, probably one of the two of them, I'd imagine, just to kind of try and protect the investment, because I don't want to spend big and then them leave next year. So
yeah, I remember when I bought my first ever Dolphins jersey was Dominican Sue, and he left literally 2 or 3 months after I bought the jersey, and that was a bit of a damn squid. And I eventually ended up ruining it by putting it in a tumble dryer, which I didn't realise back then that was something that happened to football shirts if you put them in a tumble dryer. Actually, I forgot. Actually, Josh Allen had changed names. He changed his surname, which is completely passed by. I completely forgotten that. So yeah, that would be interesting. Is he going to change his jersey as well? The name on the back of the jersey, would it be Hines-Allen on the back?
Yeah, so in pre-season he's had that so far, so I'd kind of expect it to carry on. He said he wanted it to kind of represent both parts of his family, because they've kind of both been kind of supportive throughout his career, and he wants them to kind of both get kind of equal representation in his success. So I think it's quite a nice reason behind it. And yeah, I've just got to keep reminding myself, because the habit is just to say Josh Allen, because it's been that way for so long. So it'll take some getting used to, but hopefully another big year from him.
Yeah, it ruins the whole Bills game in terms of Josh Allen against Josh Allen. It ruins that narrative that they'll have pre-game or even during the game. But yeah, that is where we'll end the podcast for today. So once again, thank you, Lee, for coming on.
Thanks very much for having me, Andy. Obviously, we do this most years now, and it's a nice way to start the season. It's kind of like, for me, it's one of the points when I come on your podcast. I know it's getting close.
That's good to hear. It's good that has affected you that way. That's always good to hear. And for those of you that have listened to this podcast and haven't come across Lee's work yet, Lee, tell the audience how they can find you on socials, if you'd like to plug yourself. That is.
Yeah, no. So I'm on X. I still go to say Twitter every time. I'm on X and Facebook as @BritJag. Those are the main two. I do have an Instagram, but I don't update it anywhere near as much as I do my X account and my Facebook. So check me out there. And yeah, there's just Jags related content and my opinions on Jag stuff.
Amazing stuff. Yeah, if you haven't already, do give them a follow on socials. But this has been the Jacksonville Jaguars team season preview with your host Andy Davis, myself, and also our guest today, Jag fan Lee. And we will see you guys on next episode, our next team season preview. See you there.